Hi guys, welcome back to Bunny Brick Designs. It's the day after Thanksgiving for me. You'll probably be seeing this on Monday following Thanksgiving. So I know when I did the unboxing of the Curated Bead Box for this month, we had these gorgeous browns and grays and silvers. So basically silver and gold, treasure chest. And I know I had pulled out some Shibori ribbon in black and beige, but I have actually been looking at designs, actually yesterday while I was waiting for my turkey to cook. And I decided that I liked the green and the brown to go with this because I think that mirrors these colors. So I'm going to do some Shibori for you, and I'm going to move the camera here just a little bit so we can look at what I'm doing. So I've already drawn out, and this one's horrible because my lines weren't great. I've drawn out a design and basically cut it out. So this is just stiffened, and you can see I did a couple of shapes. This is just stiffened felt, and so I went to Walmart and bought the felt sheets, the 8x11 felt sheets, and then just took regular school glue, watered it down, and just put it, soaked it into the felt sheet and let it dry. So it makes this nice stiff felt. Now you can buy lacy stiff stuff or, but they're really expensive. And this was like 99 cents with some white glue. And nobody's going to see this anyways. This is going to be on the inside. And it's going to get covered on the back. So nobody's going to see anything. So I decided to cut some Shibori. And it doesn't have to be a huge piece. Now Shibori lace is very expensive. Mostly because it's a hand dyeing process, and they take the lace and they lay it over something and they wrap it with string, and then they scrunch it up so that that's how it gets the pleats in it, and then they hand dye it. So I'm going to be sewing this onto here in a kind of a puff design. And I know this is really hard to see because it's not sewn down, but it's going to be kind of poofy. Not super puffy, but a little bit puffy, which is what you want because you want the lace to puff up. And then I thought we could do a little design where these go here like this, and we may put on 2 of these glass beads on either side, and I know this isn't going to stay, so we'll be sewing these on over the Shibori. And then I thought, maybe because we have this orangey color in here, maybe doing either some bright orange or some darker browns. Like I've got this copper gray color I may use, or I may alternate. I'm going to open these up actually just to see what they look like. With it, because what we're looking for here is when I'm doing the design. Now I like that, and I do like that on the brown. I don't know if I'm going to like that on the green, which is kind of dark. They're kind of dark on the green, which is fine. The yellow isn't. But then again, I could always put crystal, or I could take and throw in some of this dark garnet color and do that, or even these frosted matte, like that would look good. So I may mix them up and do, sorry guys, I hate it when that happens, do some things with it. I haven't quite decided. Well, it's going to be organic. So, but I mean, I've got the basic color scheme, and so I figured this is probably going to be a several part series because doing doing the design and doing everything in the steps. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of it so you don't have to watch everything. It's going to take a bit. Now, I haven't decided if I'm going to just sew this straight across the top there like that, or if I'm going to maybe angle it and curl it, and then, so if I angled it, curled it, and then fluffed it over, I don't know. I think I'm going to just sew it straight and do a straight poof. So with that being said, I've got myself a beading needle, and I don't really have a lot of thread that's going to go with it. So I'm going to use this green thread that I have. And it's embroidery thread. So it's a little stronger than regular sewing thread. But it's not beading thread. Now you can use beading thread. You can use, anything you want. But again, I'm just sewing fabric to fabric, so it really doesn't matter what you're using for thread. Now, when I put the beads on, I probably will use the same thread. Maybe I'll use white beading thread. I haven't decided on that yet. You can use clear, but again, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is, gonna look good. So now I've drawn some lines on here. So what I did, and let me find my other one. I did some measuring so that I knew where to put my shibori. And then I made a line that goes over the design where I can see where I'm going to start my swirl. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to string on the beads, these beads, and then I'm going to sew it, and then I'm going to go back in and tack it down, so I know where to start and stop, so that they are roughly a mirror image of each other. So that being said, those are in line. So if I were to take let's do a business card here, and line these up, my lines are even. There, my lines are even there, and my lines are even there. And so that way, they're going to be mirror images of each other. So I'm going to start sewing, and I will probably fast forward through this part or pause you and come back. Now, I like to start by getting my needle into the design first. And if you have to, you can always hold it up to the light, and you can't really see it. But if I hold it up to the light, I can kind of see where it starts. And again, going through this stiff, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack down the thread by going back through once, just to make sure that my thread is on there, and it's got a starting point. And then I'm going to go back through. So now I've tacked it on quite nicely, even though there's a knot on there, and we will be doing some gluing on the back. I'm going to start with taking and going through all of the pleats, just to get this started. And tack it down. Now, when I do my shibori, I know other people, when they do shibori, they tend to just sew the raw edge down. So I like to fold mine under at points, just because I think it gives it a more finished look. Now, this part here is going to be covered anyways with beads, so I'm not too worried about it. But the sides and the bottom, if anything happens to show, I really don't want it to to look bad. Now I've tacked it down, and now I can space it out, and then I'm just going to go back through, and it really doesn't matter where, because again, this is going to be hidden by a lot of beads, and I'm just going to tack it down, and you'll see the thread here in a minute. So you might see some green thread, and that's fine. Again, this is going to have beads over it. Nobody's going to see it. And so this is going to be something where we don't use standard sewing techniques. So like I'm sewing this side, and then you would think that I'd be going down the side, seeing that I'm already at the top, but I'm actually going to swap and possibly tack in the bottom before I do anything. Oops, knots. That's the other thing you have to watch out for, is getting knots in your thread. I just want to make sure this is down nice and tight here. Let's see, that's not going in. There we go. And you want to make sure that it's not going to be sticking out over your design, which that's right on the edge. But again, I can tack that in with beads, and that should be fine. Now I'm thinking I am going to come down here to about the center point, and I'm going to come in just a hair from, like, I don't know if you can see that. The needle is just slightly away from the line. And I've got Bunny's chewing at my pant leg again for cookies. She loves it when I'm videoing. So then what I'm going to do now that I've got this down here, is I'm going to spread this out, kind of find the center point, and I'm going to fold that over. I'm going to assume that green point is the center. Now, it doesn't have to be exact, and I'm going to go up through that just to tack it down there. And as you can see, it's going to create a little bit of a puff and make it a little squiggly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back down through the felt, if I don't knot everything up. And yes, because I double up my thread, it tends to knot easy. But they should all pull out because they're really not, it's really not super knotted. I just got to figure out what to pull. And see, that just twisted. That just twisted, that's all. All right, I'm going to get this through here. Or not. All right, I'm going to pause you for a second. I got to get this knot out. All right, had to put the magnifier glasses on. It was just twisted pretty bad. All right, so I've started my tack here. And so that's right at the edge, which is fine, because I've got a good smooth edge. Now I'm going to start tacking down. Now I don't want to get rid of all of the pleats, so I'm just going to do a rough tack, because again, we're going to be sewing it down with beads as well. And if you have to, you can always go over it again. Now I'm going to continue to tuck under here and I need it on a curve, so I'm going to tuck more as I go. And so I've tucked it under here, and I'm just holding it with my thumb. And we're going to just go and see. This thread just likes to knot. It's probably why I stopped using it for embroidery thread. And just kind of have it lying around because it would knot up in my sewing machine. And again, it does not have to be perfect because we are going to be putting beads on to finish this off. And I have a design that I'll show you in the next video when we do the finishing. I mean, it's just, they're absolutely gorgeous when they're done. And again, you don't want to flatten it out too much because flattening it out ends up making it too wide, and then you'll end up having to trim. And again, I'm just tucking in here. And so while this part, you're probably thinking, oh my God, that's really messy. You know, I used to sew and would have, you know, I would have to rip it out, re-sew, rip it out, re-sew, because I like things super neat. Shibori is supposed to be a little on the messy side because that's how you get the fabric to lay in very nice, beautiful designs. Now, I'm not saying scrunch it all up in a ball and just sew it down. I mean, think about your design. But again, I kind of wanted this to have a bit of a abstract look to it, kind of a wave. And keep in mind, if you're making like I'm doing, I'm making a pair of earrings, while you try to get it exact, your shibori isn't going to lay exactly the same. No matter what you do, you're not going to get it to lay 100% exactly the same. You can sew it on the same. You can, you know, you can tack it down exactly the same, but it's not going to, at all be, completely identical. So now you can see I've got this side tacked down. I'm going to continue on up this side now and just kind of tack it down so that it's so that it lays up against the edge. And again, I'm not going directly up to the edge. I'm kind of going about maybe a 1/16 of an inch, couple millimeters from the edge of the and we have another twist. Really? There we go. All right. And I guarantee you this will be beautiful when I am done. We just have to get the beads on. Now, if you didn't want to do it like this where you organically puff, you could do and stitch down one side, stitch down the other, and then finish the bottom. You know, or you could start on one side, work your way, you know, you can do it however you want. Remember, this is your art. I just like to do it this way just because I think it gives me a much more organic feel to it. And it's a little bit easier to figure out where you want to put the stuff on the sides. And how did that get in there? There we go. Get that out of the way. And as you can see, it's puffy, but again, this puff is going to be covered by beads. So you're really not going to see any of this. All right, so this video doesn't get super long. I'm going to finish this up and I will be back. All right, guys, I'm back. So I've actually done both of them off camera. And while this one's a little bit messier, I'm going to do a couple more tack downs over here just to kind of get this guy back in. And this is the beauty of doing Shibori. Again, the outside edges, you're really not going to see that. That is if I do it right. Again, I'm just tacking down. And see, that guy just probably didn't get tacked down the way it should. And I'm going to go through the fabric here just to kind of get it pinched up and then go back through. And that didn't work. So I'm just tacking down a few more spots. And again, you'll see here in a second, they don't always lay the way you think they're gonna lay. So even though I tacked them down, this one's kind of, again, the lace is gonna be organic. You're never gonna get it to be exactly identical, but they look similar. And so that's what you're going for. Now to finish off, I usually just take my needle, go through the felt, if I can find a decent spot here that's not super stiff. But you don't want to go through the ribbon. And then I'm going to come back up through, and I'm just making sure I didn't tack onto the lace at all. And I'm going to come back up through. So that I have a nice long tail there. I am going to tie a knot, so I see some strings here that I crisscrossed, and I'm going to just do a simple little knot there. And I'm going to do one more. And then I am going to take my needle and go back through the felt. A couple more times, kind of looping it through, just so I know it's somewhat secure, and when I go and I glue this, that'll get glued down. And then I'm just going to trim. And so now we have our 2 pieces of shibori, and you'll notice I cut the corners because when I was up here, I kept getting stuck on this one. So now what we're going to need to do, and I'm going to probably use the same, maybe not, I think maybe white thread. Decisions. Or black thread. Black thread. I think black thread because black thread will probably fade into that. And this is my Nymo D thread, and I'm going to use this to sew on the beads. So all I'm doing is I'm threading my needle here. That is, if I can thread it. I'm going to pause you thread this. All right, so I've threaded my needle, and I am going to start with this one, which was our first one. And I'm going to come up through, just so you can see it, I'm coming up through right at my line. It may take a few times to get it. Ooh, that's not good. Didn't even notice that. That would have gotten cut. Which is fine. We can sew that back down. Or glue it back down. All right, so I am up through my spot. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail because I am not putting a knot in there. I mean, I could put a knot, but I'm not. I'm just going to leave a tail. And I am going to start out with, I think I'm going to use one of these crystals. One of these. Whoops. The pearl. The big bead. And the pearl. And then do a crystal. Now I want to see how this lays before, because this is going to be my focal. So I want to see how this is going to lay on my shibori and make sure it's long enough to go across the ribbon. So that looks about right. It's going to lay, it'll lay decently. And so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to poke through at my other line, holding on to that beginning tail, just because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here in a minute to get that tied on. Now I'm going to go back through, preferably not the same hole. And I'm going to make it nice and tight, and then I'm going to come through all my beads again so that there's at least 2 threads. And then I'm going to go back down through the felt, as I poke myself, and pull that tight. Now this is kind of loosey-goosey, that's fine. We're going to fix that here in a minute. Now I'm just going to do several knots on the back with my tail and my working thread. And I just did a surgeon's knot there. So now that's nice and tight. So that is actually pretty tight, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that it lays just the way I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then come up through somewhere in the spot where I think I want to tack down, and I'm just going to go over and right back into the same hole if I can get it, or close to, and I'm going to tack down in between the beads. So as you can see there, the thread is going in between that beads and it's just pulling it down. Now I'm going to do one more down here and tack it down, preferably in the same spot. And then there we go. So that's tacked down nicely. And I think what I want to do is tack one more down here just to get this to lay kind of the way I had it intended. And you want to make sure that you're hiding your thread, that nobody's going to see the thread through it. Like that. Perfect. So now I've got my focal. Now what I want to do is I want to start beading around the edges, and then we'll finish up the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate. And I've got some copper colored seed beads, and they're 11O Preciosa, and they're copper line crystal, just because they're very sparkly. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to start here where I just finished stitching, and I'm going to come up through. I'm going to start by tacking on a copper bead, just to get that into position there. And then what I'm going to do, and I know it's not laying the way I need it to, but that's fine. I'm going to come back up through, and I know it's really hard for you to see here. I'm coming back up through right where I started. Now I'm going to go through that copper bead, and I'm going to try not to get the Shibori silk, but I did. We'll go back through that, see if we can get that out of there. Good. All right, so I've got my copper bead on there laying the way I need it, and I think I'm going to do alternating beads. So I'm going to do this, a copper bead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it to see what I think of it before I tack it down, because once you tack it down, trying to rip it out is not going to be very easy. And so I think I like that, going up and around. And so yes, I like that. So what I'm going to do is I've put these on, and I'm going to end with a copper line seed bead. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tack it down right where the beads end, on the edge of the design. And now I know, excuse me, I know that's not laying great, but what we're going to do is now we're going to come back up, and we're going to come back up through a spot, and we are going to literally just tack down once, like that. And then we are going to come up through, and I'm doing it on the seed beads or in between the seed bead and a bigger bead, because I don't want my, sorry if I'm off camera, I don't want my threads to show. And I'm just going to tack back down, making sure I don't and see I've tacked. If you have loops like this, don't worry, I will show you how to fix those. Again, it's really simple, and we're going to be gluing all of this anyways, so no worries on that. Now that I've tacked those down, I am going to come back through and go back up, oops, through, and I just messed up all my beads. I do that all the time. Thank God for fabric tablecloths. And I am just going to go through my beads here one more time, so I have extra threads in there. And as you can see, you're not going to see the stitching, and I see a spot right there where I see stitching, and we can fix that, and I will show you how in a second. I'm going to clean this up. I'll be right back. All right, so as you can see, there's a couple of spots right here that looks like you can see the beads. We will fix that. We will fix that. But I'm going to continue on up and get up to here on that. And then I will show you how to do this top part. So we have a seed bead. We need a bicone, a seed bead, another yellow, another seed bead. I'm going to set those up there, just out of the way. And you can do multiples. You can do 2 or 3 at a time. You can do however many you want. Just depends on the location of what you're doing. If I'm trying to do straight lines, I tend to do less beads. If I'm doing curved lines, I do more beads, just because it's easier to get them tacked down. And so we are tacked down. Now I'm going to come up through the previous, and actually I'm going to go one more. I'm going to go up through this seed bead from the previous stitching, and then go through everything, and then pick up that copper bead if I can get it. He just does not want to come up. All right, so now I've got that. I'm going to do all the way up, and I'm really liking this right now. I really am. I think this is going to turn out beautifully. Not normally my colors, greens and browns and yellows, but again, if you can get the right color patterns, you know, colors that are not normally your style will turn out fabulous. And another seed bead. And so that is going to be right up to, as you can see, that's going to be right up to my stitching. So I am going to end with that. And again, we need to tack down. And if you feel like you only want to do one, one bead at a time, or 2 beads at a time, and just, go through them, you can do that. I mean, however you like to stitch down your beads is fine, as long as you are doing 2 things. 1, you're covering your thread for sewing down your shibori, and 2, you're hiding your thread for your beads, because this should look like the beads are on, they're just kind of there. They're glued on, everybody knows they're stitched on, but they just kind of look like they float in there. Now I'm going to go back up through all of those, and then we were going to start working on the other side, because we don't want to do the top just yet. And again, pulling tight, going back through. Sorry if I'm off camera. And all right. So now I've got that tacked down. This guy is annoying me. I'm going to tack him down just a little more, just because that 1 or 2 beads are bugging me. And again, you can go through the beads as many times as you need to secure it. And I'm going to go down through there right now, just to pull that nice and tight. All right, so there we go. We've got that. Now I'm going to continue working over to here, and I'm going to go down and around, and I will be back. All right, guys, I'm back. So I finished up, and I actually went through a couple of the beads from the first round, and now I'm just going to go through a few more beads, just because I think it will just make it a little more sturdy. And I need to tie this off anyways, because I don't have enough to do the finishing touches. I'm going to go through a couple more. And actually, no, I'm going to tack it down here, just because I want to go back with this thread and come back here. Now you can see I've got a spot here where I can see some stitching, and a spot there where I can see some stitching. Everywhere else looks really good. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pick up a couple of beads, and I don't know if I like that. Actually, I kind of like that. And I'm going to put maybe a bead there and a bead there. I don't know. I like that there. Nope. Yes, like that. And so this is a different bead that's not been in there before, and that's fine to have just one of a bead, and again, I can put a couple, I can go up and do a couple here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back, I'm going to tack that first bead down, and that is just going to be going in a spot near where you want to tack down and hide your threads. Pick up a bead and tack back down somewhere near there, just to tack it in. And so there we go, that bead's in. If you didn't like having that exposed, you could come back up, because this is in a corner. I could come back up and go back through the bead and maybe put on a copper bead, copper bicone, and a copper seed bead. just to tack it down. And we're just going to tack that down right next to the edge there. I'm going to come back up through close to where I started and then just run back through because I need to get back up to the other side. And then I'm going to tack down again and go through the felt. Now the back side looks horrible. Don't worry. We're going to fix that in the next step. I'm going to come back up through here. I'm going to pick up one of these beads. And I'm going to tack that down somewhere close to where I started. And then again, I can see thread, so I'm going to come back up through and I'm going to pick up some seed beads or a seed bead, go back through this, and then tuck. I'm going to grab another seed bead. I'm going to grab a second one of these and another seed bead just because I want to do a little bit of a design there extra that wasn't necessarily planned, but I think will look good when it's all said and done. It'll give it a little bit more bling. And I'm just going to come back up through somewhere close to that middle bead, but I am not going to tack it down the same. I'm just going to run through these beads again just to give it a little more stability. And I'm going to go back through my felt and tack it down. I like that. It kind of gives me, I may do some more up here when I get to this part. I'm going to finish off my thread. And I'm going to start by creating a knot because I don't have a lot of this thread to go through the felt all that much. So I'm going to create a couple of little slip knots here, going through my felt some. And then I am going to run through the felt a little bit. And we'll tie this off. We'll cut this off. And I just cut the threads there, which is fine. We will be gluing that down anyways, so that's not going to be a big deal. Not to mention now that like the green thread that was tying the shibori down, it's really not necessary anymore because I don't know if you see this. We've got all of these stitches holding the shibori down. The shibori's not going anywhere. Again, you can tuck and pull the shibori to get it the way you like it, puffed up. Alternatively, if you wanted this more puffy, you could put some batting in underneath there. I am going to get some more thread, and we will show you how we're going to do this part up here. I'm going to take a nice long thread because if I, want to do additional beading, we can. I'm really liking this so far. So I am going to finish this part and then I am going to do the backing part and show you how to finish off in video number 2, just because this is probably getting extremely long. And I think what I'm going to do is on this over here, I think just on the top part here, I think I'm going to do a couple of beads there, and then that's it. Ooh, as I throw beads, which will need to be cleaned up, but we'll get a new one. So again, I'm just going to go through my spot where I want to, and I'm going to leave a tail because I am going to tie. I am going to do one seed bead, one of those, and then maybe another seed bead. And I don't know if I'm going to do one or two. I may just do the one. I think I like the one. I'm going to get my tail here, hold on to it, and then I'm just going to tack it in right there. Now, ultimately, if you want to do additional beading in here, like I could put a bead in here tacked down, a bead up here tacked down. So for example, if I wanted to have that there, just random, maybe one there, just random, and I might just put one, maybe, I don't know. I think I like this. I don't want to get it too much because you're going to take away from the ribbon. And again, I'm just tying it on here. Just to get it so that it's held down. And I don't really need to do a whole lot more with that. I think that's fine. Now, to finish off the top part, we are going to come up through right next to that seed bead. So there's this, I don't know if you can see that really well. There's this seed bead right here. We're going to go right up through, we're going to go right up next to that. Actually, I went through that, which is fine. And I am going to take, and I'm just going to do, I think I'm going to do, to start out with, just a row, like 3 seed beads, a yellow bead, and 3 seed beads. That should be wide enough. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the width of that, and 3 seed beads may be too much. 2 seed beads. So this is why I say you need to test before you stitch down, because I don't want it to be super bulky, but I don't want, and I'm going to take, I'm going to leave 2 seed beads on, pull the rest of the beads off, put my yellow on, put 2 seed beads on. Now, ultimately, I could just go across here with all seed beads, but I wanted to at least have a fun thing, and I'm going to go right back down through that, that top seed bead, which is fine, and we're just going to do that, and see, that's going to give me a nice finished look. Now, I'm going to go back up through the other side, pretty close to what I just did. And now I'm just going to take, for this, I am just going to take seed beads to finish this off. And we're going to go right underneath that other bead. So I'm going to take, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're going to be reducing the number of seed beads as you go. So this, if you look, will tack nicely under there. And I'm going to go right next to that seed bead. So now I'm probably only going to need 4 on the next one. And again, if you don't like that it's wobbly, so I could come in here not liking the wobble, and just tack down like that. Tack that down right there. And the reason why I'm doing the row of just seed beads is so that it's, you know, it's not super, and again, it doesn't have to be completely unique. I'm doing it on a slant a little bit, and I'm probably going to go down here a little bit with some more beads. Now, I think I want to do one of these guys up here at the top. Oops, would help to get my thread back through. And again, this is just bead embroidery at this point, so you can do whatever you want. Like I said, you can do one bead at a time. You could do 2 beads at a time. The big key thing for this is to make sure that your felt is hidden, your top of your shibori is hidden, and you have a nice look. Now, see, I like that, and I think I'm just going to run through that one more time. I have a knot in my thread, which is really not hindering, not a big deal. And then I am going to, if I can get a hold of my needle, tack this back down there. And then I'm going to come up through there where this orange bead is, and I'm going to run through the orange bead, but I'm going to split off my thread because what I want to do is I want to pick up a seed bead. I'm going to take one of these, and actually I'm just going to put 2 on, I think, and another seed bead just to finish it off. And I am going to tack it in right down there. And then I'm going to come up through the felt, and I'm going to tack down those 2, right between those 2 peachy colored beads. I don't even know what you'd call them for color, but they're interesting. All right, so I've got this weird thing going on here, and sometimes that'll happen. So I've got that done, and I'm ready to tie off. Now I've got this weird thing that apparently my knot stuck. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this thread, and I'm going to tie a knot. And because we're ready at this point to start finishing, I don't have to worry about doing my running through the felt. And I'm going to tie this guy off to that as well. And again, I know you're looking at this going, my God, it's messy. But that's fine. We have plenty of... We'll have plenty of glue, trust me, and none of this is going to be coming out. And so what I'm going to do now is, seeing that I have all of these tails, and I don't want a ton of them, I'm just going to cut off the tails. And that guy, again, is at the edge. Now, the one thing you're going to do, and you're going to want to be very careful, so I always turn it around to the back side, is you're going to want to cut around your edge. Oh God, that looks so beautiful. I don't know if you can see how sparkly and pretty that is. Now, like I said, I could put another bead there, but I don't think I want to. I think this is good enough. I like that it's got beads around the outside, and it's got this here. And it's not super busy. It's pretty, but it's not super busy. So when you cut, you're going to be cutting as close as you can to the beads, again, without cutting your threads, which is why I cut on the back side, because I don't want to cut the threads. Now, if you have to be careful that you don't cut through your design on the front as well. And it's fine if there is a little bit of space, because again, we're going to be finishing this off. Like here, I don't want to cut there. That's just too close. And again, here I'm just cutting pretty wide around, just because I don't want to cut too close, because we do need something to stitch onto. All right, and there. So that's what it's going to look like. And again, I know you can still see the edges. Now, if you don't like the white, you could take a paint marker, paint pen, Sharpie, and you could come in here with the Sharpie and kind of color it in with similar colors that'll match. Like if you had a green, I'm doing it with the brown. Just kind of come in and just touch up your felt. And so it kind of gets rid of the white. Now you could ultimately, if I wanted to, and I didn't like this, so on this one, I could just color that in brown so that when I put my beads on, you're not going to see any white through there. But so that's that part. Now, I'm going to get ready to finish this off, and then we will finish this off in the next video, because I do need to let the glue dry. So I will show you how to get it set up so that we could finish off, and then in the next video, we will finish this off. So I'm going to do this one while this is drying. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a piece of suede or a piece of fabric. I like using ultra suede. I think it looks really good. And so I have this ultra suede here that is neutral tones. I like to use the neutral tones rather than buying a gazillion colors, because you can pretty much do any single piece of jewelry with your neutral tones. Now I think I like this one. I think that goes very well with it. This one's light, it would work. The brown would be darker, it would also work. But I like this one because it matches that brownish color. So all we're going to do is we're going to take E6000, if I can get my E6000 open. Try not to use my teeth for that. That's not going to work. There we go. And all we're going to do is slather E6000, making sure you get all of your threads along the edges. Now, if you don't get it 100% to the edge, that's fine. Mostly because, again, we're going to be doing some more stitching. And what you don't want to do is like what I did there, is get glue right up to the edge. Mostly because I don't want glue sticking out from my felt. Now I'm going to pick the side that I think this side here on the outside will look best. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down and press it into place. And smooth it out, push the glue out, and just let it sit. And then we're just going to set this off to the side, making sure like that any ends are not sticking out and tucked in. And then we will finish this off in the next one. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. And I'm going to go finish this other one and get it on here so that we can have both of them. And I will see you soon.